as they continue to cause chaos across Britain. Should the Just Stop Oil protest group finally be banned? It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Yes, and of course they were. Just Stop Oil were back in the headlines today after they attempted to bring Gatwick Airport to a standstill by blocking the departures lounge. So here we are, here's the pictures. Despite locking themselves to suitcases, the 7 activists failed to disrupt much at all after passengers simply stepped over them. That was before police moved in to arrest them. It follows, of course, repeated threats from Just Stop Oil to disrupt British airports over the peak summer season, with 10 of their members preemptively arrested last week over a plot to target Heathrow. But even the risk of prison time doesn't seem to put these people off, with the 4-year sentences handed down to protesters that caused disruption on the M25 clearly not influencing their behaviour. So tonight I'm asking, should Just Stop Oil be banned? Let me know your thoughts by heading to gbnews.com/your say or tweet me at gbnews and vote in the poll whilst you're there. I'll bring you the results very, very shortly. But first, going head-to-head on this are Just Stop Oil spokesperson Adrian Johnson and political commentator Lee Harris. Adrian, I'll start with you. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Why are you targeting holidaymakers and airports? Do you want everyone to simply stop flying?
Good evening, Ben. Thank you so much for having me on. Ben, to be very clear about this isn't about flying. This isn't about stopping people flying. This is, we're taking action because we're calling on governments globally to end the extraction and burning of fossil fuels by 2030. And it's an international uprising that's taking place in 12 different countries, organised by 21 different groups, and we are part of that international.
So why airports over this summer season? You tried Heathrow, you were foiled. Why Gatwick today?
Well, airports are key sites of the fossil fuel economy.
OK. When was the last holiday abroad you had, Adrian?
That's a really good question. I'd have to think about that.
Was it quite...
It wasn't flying. It wasn't flying, Ben. It was by coach, but it was some time ago.
OK, well, look, if I may say so, you got the memo, but one of your protesters today, Melissa Carrington, she's 63 from Dorset, she was named in your press release and she was pictured at the security entrance today at Gatwick. This is her posing in Dubai, pulling some fancy yoga poses. These are publicly available pictures on her Facebook page. I'll take 2 minutes to go on there and have a look. So why is it OK for your protesters to holiday abroad on gas-guzzling jets, but not other people?
Again, to repeat, then, this isn't about flying. This isn't a moral statement about flying. This is about ending the use and the burning of fossil fuels.
So you don't see the hypocrisy in one of your members flying to Dubai for a holiday and yet protesting at Gatwick Airport, stopping people's summer holidays, no?
I tell you what I see, Ben. I see the absolute necessity of people, ordinary people like Mal, taking action like this, because we are up against entrenched power that are not going to give in to debate, they're not going to give in to scientific argument, and yet we know from the science it is absolutely clear that we are heading for societal collapse, and that we're doing this actually in support of law and order, because when people starve and they get hungry, law and order collapses, and we do not want to see that.
Yeah, sure. OK, let me bring in Lee. I mean, some would say, Lee, that, you know, if your house is burning down, you wouldn't go and take another flight abroad.
Yeah, but the problem with all of this is it's completely futile. We are still going to need oil and gas. I think we will still be using 50% of our energy will be coming from oil and gas by 2030. And this comes from the Climate Committee, the government's own Climate Committee. I think even by 2050, we'll still be using 25%. And that's when we hit net zero. We'll still be using 25% oil and gas for our energy needs. That is just going to be a fact. That's going to happen. So I really don't understand what your aims are, because you're not going to change that fact. And by the way, those estimates are based on assuming that the renewable technology proceeds and continues in the way that it is. And there's a lot of people actually that believe that that might not actually happen. So these are quite generous estimates. We are still going to need oil and gas. So I don't understand what you think you're going to stop. It's genuinely futile.
Adrian?
Thanks. OK, so Lee, we have to absolutely do this. OK, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. But I would say, again, it is absolutely necessary. But it's also effective. Okay, the action that we're taking is actually effective. So, for example, views of the video of this morning's action have been seen by millions of people. The action in 2022 that you referred to, Ben, that led to the imprisonment of the 5 people for 21 years as a total, that action actually shifted the views of over 2 million people in the UK, and it actually changed.
How did you work that one out?
Because research was done, over 1,000 people were surveyed before the action, they were surveyed after the action, and based on those results of those surveys, it maps onto 2 million people changing the views. But the thing that's incontrovertible there, or you cannot argue, that the government changed their policy. They have cancelled.
I mean, Adrian, that survey sounds as flimsy as the climate argument, to be fair.
But the other thing is this, Ben, to repeat, we're calling on governments to agree, to work together and to sign an international legally binding treaty to end the use of fossil fuels by 2030. Now, that treaty, okay, the mention of that treaty in the media since the start of our airport actions globally has gone up by over 8,000%. Okay, this is effective.
Adrian,
and it is necessary.
Adrian, I hate to interrupt. Are you aware that we are one of the first G20 countries, or the first G20 country, to halve our emissions? You're kind of, preaching to the converted. The UK has done probably one of the most in terms of all the Western countries over the last 50 years to reduce our carbon emissions. We're responsible for less than 1% of global emissions, and actually we've had to deindustrialise to get that. So now we're effectively increasing the overall emissions.
And Adrian, if I may interrupt, Adrian as well, you've got what you wanted. You've got a Labour government, Ed Miliband running riot, that's scrapping any new licences in the North Sea, wind farms everywhere. You've got what you wanted. So why are you still trying to block people enjoying their summer holidays, especially when your own protesters do the same thing? They're off to Dubai and wherever else.
Because, I'm hugely proud of what the UK has achieved so far, but it clearly is not enough. We need to go further, and we need to go faster. We need to have a sense of urgency. We need to actually mirror the urgency of the scientists, the experts who know what they're talking about.
Trust the experts. OK. Adrian, by the way, who funds Just Stop Oil?
It's mainly funded by small donations.
Well, you do get donations. It's mainly funded by the Climate Emergency Fund. I'm sure you're familiar with them, yes?
CEF, I am familiar with that. I've seen a pie chart.
So one of your biggest donors, Adam McKay, who's the Hollywood film director, he boasts all the time, and you can find these clips online, he boasts all the time about flying from LA to his holiday home in Ireland. So again, I say, and I will say it, it's hypocrisy for your members who are sitting at Gatwick to take holidays but stop other people from taking holidays, and it's hypocrisy for your biggest funder, Adam McKay, to fly when he wants to escape the hustle and bustle of LA to Ireland whenever he likes. It's pure hypocrisy.
But Ben, it is not hypocritical to sit down and to put ourselves in the way to try and make change that is absolutely necessary.
Okay. But you're not going to make that change, Adrian.
Lee, we're sorry to interrupt, we're running out of time. 10 seconds, last word to you.
You're not going to make that change, Adrian, if you target the hard-working British public. You need to get people on side, and you're not going to do... Well, you've alienated hundreds and thousands of people because of what you're doing. It's honestly hypocritical middle-class clowns.
OK. All right, Adrian, look, we disagree, but I appreciate you coming on. Thank you. And you too, Lee. Thanks for coming tonight. So who do you agree with back home? Sam on X says impossible to ban, unfortunately. Joanne on X says no. However, arrest them when they break the law or don't comply with instructions to move. And I guess the police are doing that more recently. And Sean on X says groups like Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion and Insulate Britain are too extreme and a death cult. The latest stunt shows they want to frighten us with their cultish statements. Ban them all together. And your verdict is now in. 96% of you agree Just Stop Oil should be banned, while 4% of you say they should stick around for a bit longer.